committee of the whole meeting with the Board of Education, School District number 40, at the Coolidge Professional Development Center. Sorry. Can I have roll call, please?
Audrey Anderson.
Here.
Justin Anderson.
Present.
Sangeeta Rayapati. Here. Kate Schaefer.
Here.
Maria Esposito. Here. Andrew Ware.
Here.
Aaron Walden Smith.
Here. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting from March 8th of 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we will move the public comment participation to the regular board meeting. We have a recognition of retiring board member of education.
Tonight we say goodbye to our board member, our board president, Sangeeta Rayapati. When Sangeeta, Andy, and myself joined 4 years ago, we were new to the system, to each other, and the city board. Sangeeta, from the very beginning, you strove to make us more than a board of people, but instead a community working together for a greater good. Thank you for your steady leadership, your passionate heart, and desire to always do right. We are better because you led us. You will be missed, and we wish you well, and know you will work tirelessly to make Moline back. This is lovely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now, Savage, we have a elementary secondary emergency review.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board. I wanted to present some information to you regarding the elementary and secondary emergency relief for schools, commonly known as CARES Act, or ESSER is the acronym. There is a lot of information coming about regarding the different buckets of federal funding that is being issued to schools. And I wanted to make sure that I did my part to provide you with all of the relevant information and get some guidance and feedback on how the district should best move forward with these funds. The purpose of the presentation is to provide a review of all three federal relief packages, to provide a general overview of our plan for these dollars that are aligned to our district strategic goals, and to get your feedback and seek guidance, again, to ensure that we are on the right track. I did want to reiterate that this plan and presentation is a general overview. Once funds are actually received, projects and timelines will be finalized, and individual expenditures will come back for official Board of Education approval per policy. There are three separate pandemic relief packages known as ESSER 1, 2, and 3. The first pandemic relief package was issued in spring of 2020. The second one in winter of 2020, just last December. And most recently, the American Rescue Plan Act was issued in spring of 2021. I tried to delineate the three funding packages into a user-friendly chart. So you can see the amount of each allocation, the intended use for each allocation, and the expiration date of each of these funding packages. There is a timeline for expenditures, and you can see that highlighted there in the second row. We have only received one package of federal relief monies to date, CARES 1 or ESSER 1. This was a $1.9 million allocation, and this money is directly related to our size of enrollment, as well as our Title I funding that we receive from the federal government. Most of these dollars have largely been expended, put towards supplies and staffing needed to get us back up and running initially when we were first shut down from the pandemic. The few dollars remaining are a result of some touchless sinks that have been on back order and difficult to find. So we are in the process of reallocating those monies that were allocated to those sinks, but everything else has been expended as per the rules of those monies. The second 2 buckets of money we have not received. In fact, we are just now in the process of working on the application for the second package, ESSER 2. You can see the dollar amount there, 7.5 million. And you can see that these dollars are required to be fully allocated by September 30th of 2023. ESSER 3, for the American Rescue Plan, those dollars need to be allocated and spent by the end of summer of 2024. So you can see there's a relatively tight timeline for expending these dollars. ESSER 3 is an incredibly large allocation, $17.5 million for our district, with some unique rules for ESSER 3. 20% must be allocated specifically for academic recovery and learning needs for students. The remaining dollars can be utilized towards other needs that the pandemic has brought about, air quality and things of that nature. I grouped together ESSER 2 and 3 because we're really looking at these dollars holistically in the projects that we're bringing forth to you tonight. And again, the application is currently open for ESSER 2, and we intend to submit for those funds in the coming weeks. The application for ESSER 3 through the State Board of Education will not even be available for us to begin to apply for until July 1. So these packages are really running back to back, but because the second and third package were so close together, we're really looking at them holistically in terms of what can we do to maximize these dollars for our district and really drive some of those goals that the Board of Education has already spoken about. We wanted to make sure that the priorities that we were putting forth in these dollars were aligned to our district strategic goals. We know that these monies have a timeline to them, but we also know that it is a one-time unique allocation that can allow the district to expedite some very important projects that we have been talking about for years. The top 2 areas of focus really are the primary dedication for those dollars. The bottom 3 really represent the smaller remaining funds that would be allocated with these monies. The board has expressed on a number of occasions the importance of making sure that all of our schools put forth an equitable learning environment so that our students and staff are comfortable and can safely meet their learning needs throughout the day. We know about half of our facilities are currently temperature controlled, specifically air conditioning. And I know specifically that to gather the funds to be able to air condition the remaining number of our schools has been a priority of this Board of Education since I have been here for 2 years and certainly many, many years prior to that. The other primary use for the dollars we are proposing is specifically focused on teaching and learning and the academic recovery process. We've worked collaboratively with teacher leadership and other stakeholders to ensure that we will be able to have all hands on deck to drive down the learning to smaller groups and be able to address intensive one-on-one student needs. We are just now in the process, now that we have our students in school 5 days a week, able to truly begin to assess our students to determine where the gaps are and what the needs are going to be. And that spring assessment is also going to be used to drive our instructional program that we are planning for this coming summer as well. Curriculum, supplies, and spaces for learning will also be addressed with these monies. Speaking specifically about temperature control, air quality, and proper ventilation in our schools, which we know has been a need in this district for quite some time, but now so more than ever in terms of the pandemic and how these factors really maximize the safety of our students and staff in our schools. So we are proposing to dedicate the majority of our funds towards air conditioning the remaining majority of the schools in our district. Funds allow for us to be able to expedite the goals that you all have been speaking about for quite some time. I've got there the current status of our temperature controlled schools, and you can see 7 of our schools have air conditioned or temperature controlled, and 8 of our schools currently do not, and you can see them listed there. Taking a look holistically at all 8 of the buildings, you can see the collective cost should we choose to move forward on a path where we air condition all remaining 8 schools for an approximate cost of $21 million. And you can see the breakdown of each individual school. These are today's numbers, highest to lowest in cost. And you can see the significant cost that most of the buildings require to bring them up to speed in full temperature control. The process for selecting the criteria that schools should be recommended for expedited air conditioning and temperature control was really based on 3 factors. The first factor, current readiness of the building in terms of its age of boiler, age of equipment, electrical, and all components related to air quality. That was the first factor. The second factor was the likelihood that that building would be recommended for continued student use. And this recommendation I'm speaking of would come through the final recommendations through our district 10-year strategic facility study, which is also currently underway, and we have just a few meetings left. And the facility study should be able to provide those recommendations to the Board of Education this summer. The other factor is the likelihood that a building would be recommended to be phased out for future student use. So it really is those 3 factors that our maintenance and facilities departments really looked at, traveling from school to school, analyzing every factor and component that would be required for HVAC. The recommendation that we have here, and again, these expenditures, all costs would be brought back to the Board of Education as appropriate per policy, cost by cost. But we wanted to provide a general overview of what we are proposing and why. We believe with the dollars that we have and the very tight timeline that we have been given, that we would be able to accomplish the air conditioning and complete HVAC for 6 of the 8 remaining schools in our district, or buildings, I should say. Keep in mind this coming summer, the summer of 2021, we are completing the HVAC project at Moline High School, in particular the A wing, which then will also have an ensuing renovation take place after that. So this summer is dedicated to completing the $15 million HVAC project at Moline High School. Our proposal then is for the summer of 2022 that we maximize that time and be able to accomplish for sure 2, possibly 3 schools. And the size of the school really dictated how these schools were bundled in terms of the cost, the time, and needed supplies, and so on and so forth. We're proposing for certain in the summer of 2022 that we would be able to complete HVAC for Butterworth Elementary and either Adams, Jane Addams, or Logan, but potentially, possibly all 3. And you can see the costs associated for those 3 schools. Then in the summer of 2023, we are proposing doing the opposite of Jane Addams or Logan, whichever one, if either of those were not done in the first group next summer in 22, that we would be able to complete the remaining 4. So Jefferson, Washington Elementary, Lincoln Irving Elementary, and then again, either Adams or Logan if they were not complete in that first bunch. And you can see the sum of those costs there. Ultimately, the Board of Education has already indicated through public action that student use will be phased out for Coolidge. And so at this time, we would not be recommending expending those dollars towards temperature control and HVAC project for this facility. And equally, Willard Elementary, the 10-year strategic facilities plan from a decade ago recommended Willard be phased out for student use because of its age. As we know, the age of Willard Elementary, lovely as it is, has an 18 in front of it, making it quite possibly infeasible to navigate an HVAC project. And it is also very likely that the current committee for the 10-year district facility plan will also carry forward that recommendation as well. Those two schools alone are approximately $9 million. So those are the 6 schools that we recommend. Those are the timelines there that would allow us to meet the deadline for spending the money and getting the biggest maximization of those dollars in terms of temperature control, ventilation, air quality, for not just in times of a pandemic, but for always in terms of our students and staff and their ability to learn throughout the day. The other monies, as I said, in terms of staffing, will be brought forth to you in other items on the agenda. We know that a lot of districts are receiving money. In fact, probably every district in the nation is receiving something. And many districts are going to be competing for HVAC projects. Many districts are going to be competing for staffing and having teachers to assist with whatever remote learning needs might look like in the fall. And how can we keep our class sizes and our learning groups small and tight during this recovery process? So being able to expedite the hiring of those additional academic recovery support teachers is very timely. That being said, we have the remainder of the school year to really work on those plans and what that rollout would look like and be able to bring that back to the board this summer. Any questions that you have?
So my question would be, with the HVAC that we're going to add to schools, I'm worried about the compatibility if we decide to add on to any particular building, being able to quote unquote plug the old into the new.
That was definitely a factor and something that we researched, and I think I'll let Dave speak to that a little bit.
I think just as we did the Bartlett Center, and just as we did the PE Center, we always have expectations that our buildings are going to be improved upon. So we will do that in the design. So it will be somewhat of a cost efficiency model, but you will have trouble. Like one of the reasons you see something on the board tonight is for a boiler at Willard and Jane Addams. And if you recall, we did the architect fee for Butterworth there. But after we decided that the extra money 2 came in, we held off on that, because if you would have put a boiler in there like we first planned, the air conditioning would have been inefficient. So we're taking best steps, but this is moving extremely fast. But the good news is with the elementary, don't forget, in the unfortunate fire of Franklin, we did add air in there. So we have a pretty good knowledge base, internal capacity to understand what it takes. So I think we're in a good situation, especially for 2 years following it, that we're doing the HVAC at the high school in addition to the PE in there. So I think our skill set internally is probably the best possible case. And that's why these projects were picked, and that's why they were picked in a certain order, so we could make sure we were successful. Because it is extremely difficult to make sure we can not only get the architect services needed, but then to buy the product and have it here. And then the third phase is to make sure the labor force is large enough to do that. So there's an advantage to being first on the street. And that's what we're really working hard to do. So yes, we're looking at that as well, and we think we have a pretty good plan.
Great, thank you.
So I would like to say this is super exciting, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness going into determining where, when, how, like the bottom there. This is my thought. For the teaching of trying to get, like said, fighting for probably quality teachers to do the learning loss and that funding, have we probably step ahead, but looking at retirees or individuals that can maybe do part-time in the out there, start tapping in and thinking about those things that might be helpful to sort of piece together some quality experience work.
That's a good suggestion, and we know that these positions will be 2-year temporary positions, but we encourage the best and the brightest in our community and beyond to apply for these positions and hope to be able to retain many of them through the attrition process over the next couple of years. So there's a lot of opportunity, but we also worked with our teacher leadership group to be able to come up with some good procedures to allow for some inner movement if that's what's requested. But ultimately, we just want to do the best to be able to meet the students' needs by getting these extra hands on deck.
You just answered my question.
Other questions?
No one else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Call this regular meeting of the Board of Education, Moline-Coal School District to order at 6:21 p.m. We need to have a roll call, please.
Audrey Adamson. Here. Justin Anderson. Sangeeta Rayapati. Here. Kate Schaefer.
Here.
Maria S. Vergero.
Here.
Andrew Ware.
Here.
Aaron Waldron Smith.
Here. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item of business is approval of the minutes from the open session of the regular Board of Education meeting of March 8, 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next motion is the motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the regular Board of Education meeting of March 8, 2021. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Communication and public comment. We do have 2 public speakers tonight. You have 5 minutes. First, Brown Gustafson, please.
Thank you. My name is Brian Gustafson. I'm the president and board of directors for the Moline-Coal School Club. I'd like to say first, COVID hurt us, but COVID hurt everybody. COVID hurt every club, every team, organization, and activity across the world, really. But we're back, and we would like an opportunity to build back better than ever before. Moline-Coal Marlins has been busy since the last meeting. We have hired an exceptional head swim coach who's going to speak after I do. We are now back in good standing with Illinois Swimming as well as USA Swimming. Our Team Unified page is back up and running. We've come out of hibernation, so to speak. Our certificate of insurance is now up to date and on file at Moline High School as well as Allendale. We have around 15 Moline-Coal Valley swimmers ready to get in the water as soon as possible. We have another 10 ready to start when the fall school season starts up. But I anticipate growing just as fast as we have before with our recruiting efforts. I believe that with the leadership of Scott Johansson, Moline-Coal Marlins will be better than ever. Hopefully by next year, we'll be back to where we once were. I see opportunity here. to grow and to improve and to build something great for Moline and for Moline High School, as well as for all the kids of our district, mine included. And I hope you all see it as well. The athletic director has proposed a facility usage idea to you tonight, and I'm here tonight to ask you to not approve what he's put forth. I reached out to our families and asked them what they thought of this flip-flop schedule, and not one parent that I spoke to is willing to hop on board with this. Not one. No one wants to schedule a 4-hour window for their kid to get in the water at 5 o'clock 1 week or 2 weeks, and then to get in the water at 7 o'clock the next 2 weeks. No one wants to do that. You can't schedule around that. It's summertime. This proposal not only compounds existing problems, but it creates new ones. And I ask you to please not approve this proposal as it's written. There are a few other options that I would ask you to consider. My least favorite of this would be to divide the pool time, but to make it constant. Whereas one club would get the 5:15 to 7 o'clock time, and I would ask that that be us, because we have more younger swimmers. I don't want my 10-year-old in the water until 9 o'clock at night. And I'm pretty sure most parents wouldn't want that either. The Piranha Swim Club has mostly high school swimmers and junior high swimmers. I wouldn't want their kids to be in the water that late either, but like I said, their kids are older, so they would be more likely to take the 7:15 to 9 p.m. time slot. The problem with this plan would be that we anticipate outgrowing 2 hours of pool time quickly, especially if our recruiting efforts pay off like they usually have in the past, especially being that this is an Olympic swim year. Swim clubs always increase their numbers during an Olympic swim year. Another option is to just let the Piranha Swim Club take over as altogether. They can have all the time they want, because like I said last time, want to see Moline swimming prosper. I don't want to hold it back in any way, shape, or form. Oh, that went fast. Thank you.
Scott Johansson?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Scott Johansson, and I have graciously accepted the opportunity to be the next head coach of the Moline Blue Marlin Swim Club. The board has asked me to briefly give you a history of my coaching experiences. I've been involved in swimming for nearly 50 years and coaching for almost 30. As an athlete, I swam for Davenport West High and was a founding member of the Rock Island Wide Quad City national team. I was a 4-year state and national finalist in the 100 butterfly, received a Division I athletic scholarship from Western Illinois University, and served as the captain of the men's team. Frank Booth, the former Moline High School coach for many years, was actually my college assistant coach. Frank is a good guy and I got a lot of great memories. I even spent the summer of 1976 with another Moline coach, Joe Ehlers. We went to Indiana swim camp together. Joe and I still vaguely remember those days. After graduation, I started my coaching career as the head coach of the Rock Island Wide Quad City national team in Rock Island. During my time there, I had the privilege of coaching Moline graduate Mary Ackerman to a national championship and a national record in the 200-meter freestyle and a second place in the 100 freestyle. That same year, Mary, my athlete, won the National YMCA Outstanding Athlete Award. During the time with the team was the largest team in the area, and we had a national YMCA top 5 finish in 1998. or 1988, excuse me. We even hosted one of the first Central Zone championships in the Longview Park pool. I've also served as the head coach for the Pleasant Valley Swim Club and grew that program from 85 swimmers to well over 200. I'm the one who built that program. We consistently finished in the top 2 in the state championships in Iowa. I had a number of state champions, sectional and national qualifiers. While I was coaching Pleasant Valley, I was asked to be the head coach for Augustana College. During my 6 years as a head coach, I grew that program from 11 total athletes, both male and female, to a full roster size of 20 and 20 for male and females. Together, we broke 66 school records, won 16 individual conference events. We had 30 all-conference selections. Each year, both teams earned academic All-American status. One year, my men's team had the 5th highest GPA in the nation among all Division III programs. I was selected to CCIW Conference Coach of the Year twice and was elected and served as a chairman of the CCIW Conference Coaches Committee. Some of the records we broke were from former Moline athletes, Matt Roach and Allison Patch. After leaving Augustana, I took a few years off to concentrate on the 2 businesses that I own. I returned as head coach of the Rock Island Orcas, and during that rebuilding, I was asked by Western Illinois University, my alma mater, to serve as head coach. Unfortunately, because of COVID and budget cuts, I only got to serve 1 year. However, during that 1 year, we were able to break 4 school records, have 6 all-conference athletes, and 1 athlete was selected by Western Illinois University as the most outstanding athlete in a championship event. Now I have the opportunity to build the Moline Blue Marlins. The one thing I love to do in coaching is to build and develop young athletes, student athletes, and teams. I build on a foundation of teaching and encouragement. I teach the fundamentals that can be expanded upon as swimmers develop. I really do love coaching swimming. With the great support of the Blue Marlin parents and the school district, I am confident that I can build upon a great tradition of nearly 50 years the Blue Marlins have had with the Moline community. I want to thank everyone for their time. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to the consent agenda. There are multiple items being pulled. Even an update from what the sheet you have in front of you. Okay. 1 through 4, we'll actually be getting 1 through 5. So if you could just pay close attention to what I'm calling. So the first one is that the Board of Education approved the actions contained in consent agenda item A as amended, and that amendment is consent agenda item A number 3 has Emma Linscott Robinson listed at Franklin. She's actually at Washington. So I need a motion to approve that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That one's passed. Second item is that the Board of Education approve the actions contained in consent agenda items B through P, R2, S, and T as presented.
We're pulling R1 and R3.
We're pulling R1
And 2. Thank you.
B through P, R2, S, and T as presented is the motion. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The third item then is the Board of Education approved the actions contained in consent agenda item R1. Your motion, as presented. No, I'm not. Oh, it's. Okay. need a motion for. There a second? Any discussion?
I think this issue for a little while, each time this program stuff comes up, it needs some discussion. It does not need to just be skipped over to the consent. No acknowledgement by itself. With that, I did have a question, and I think it may have been answered by Mr. Gustafson's statement if that was accurate. But by this varied schedule, 5 to 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., what does the varied mean? Is that accurate that they will flip flop back and forth? Some start at 5, some start at 7, and then they're going to change it up?
I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
The time available is the time the pool is open.
Okay.
In terms of who is placed in the first slot and who is placed in the second slot, I think that's up for team discussion and
Okay.
determination. The initial recommendation, which was mine, to alternate the earlier spot and the later spot was so that no team was always late. And really that was the primary reason. If both teams communicate and feel that they would feel more comfortable locking into one time frame, then that's not necessarily the superintendent decision in terms of how they want to break that up. The motion was put forth to allow both teams to have equally divided time of whatever free pool time has been available. And that's what you see before you tonight. As far as how they divvy that up, I would say that can be worked through with the athletic department.
This is just going from pretty much now to the end of July. So maybe, so 1 quarter on the calendar.
Right, that was the amount of time frame that the teams requested, but I had asked the athletic director to make sure that both teams knew that through our discussions in terms of our solution moving forward is that both teams would have the opportunity to extend this plan, if you will, through the end of December, at which time we will have had the opportunity to revise the process to encompass the new rules and approach to evaluating feeder programs that's on the docket for this summer. And that allows the team, as the coach indicated, a good quality chunk of time to recover from the pandemic. We know that that's going to take time. So we did offer the extension through December. The facilities request was initially submitted through July. And so we can certainly extend that. And again, how they choose to divide that up is up to them. We just want to make sure both teams have equal access with no facility charge, apart from a minor custodial fee, which is pretty standard, to be able to get into the pool, get their kids into the pool, and be able to draw swimmers back to their team. So that's our hope. And ideally, moving forward, if both teams are successful with that, then that's a good thing. That means more kids are swimming, as far as I know. So that's really all I know in terms of the genesis of that recommendation.
And then two other follow-ups, and then I'm done. One, this says through July, the option to extend to December. Does that come back here first, or is that done elsewhere?
I think if it's a renewed facility use, it should actually be brought forth, and that would allow the board additional time to, I guess, see how the programs are doing.
Okay.
But that would be up to you all.
And then I do see where if the programs end up with a multitude of swimmers is very potential. That 2 hours for practice for an entire club in a given shift is pretty tight to get the amount of laps and time and distance in that they need to qualify and be ready for the competition. If that's going to at some point potentially be a constraint, what method do we have to open up, say there's now 6 hours of full time instead of 4, or whatever becomes necessary to really allow both to be viable over sharing full time?
And that's certainly what we want. That's a positive if both teams are thriving. And again, that means more kids are swimming and more kids are in the pool. So I'm not sure of all the other time of the day the pool is scheduled. I don't have that information in front of me, but I think if that's the situation that the teams are in, that's a good thing. And I think we can get around the table and figure out how and where to extend whatever full time is
That's some
available.
various flexibility on as it becomes needed.
Makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Who was next? Mayor?
I was
certainly that would be under the direction of the athletic director, who's got those schedules and can make sure that, you know, the time is allotted properly, and I can work with him to make sure that happens.
That's actually where I thank you. I was shocked, I know this doesn't fall under your division, but I would like you to oversee those conversations with the two pools, the two swim clubs and the athletic director, just to make sure they are productive and healthy, and that way, when this comes to a different decision, we know that there is no he said, she said, I would feel better about it if you would.
I'm happy to do that. I can reach out to the AD and both the coaches and work that out.
Thank you.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, this has been, motion seconded and discussed. I think we need to do a roll call on this, please.
Karen Waldron Smith.
Aye.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer.
Aye.
Maria Estragero. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Sangeeta Ramapati. Abstain.
Okay, the next item is that the Board of Education approve the actions contained in consent agenda item Q as presented. This is, need a motion. Any discussion?
Yes, I asked to be told, and anyone can correct me, give me information, but this is my feeling and my concern. I actually wrote it down so I didn't babble. Q causes concern is my understanding that Ansel and Flick is the firm that represents the city of Moline. I can't help but wonder if the firm that represents the city is taking part in local politics. It feels like it was used for personal candidate use rather than city business, and I see this FOIA and I cannot help but be concerned by it. And whether there's anything we can do about it, which I don't believe there is, I do believe that concern needs to be stated publicly.
Yeah, question.
Quick question. Ben.
Yeah.
Is, since that raises the open door, is there an opportunity, what happens because it's already been responded to, if it is not an approved motion? What does that look like?
Dave.
I would say by the Freedom of Information Act, we're here, we have to adhere to the law. And in past, it's a courtesy. And we might not like why this was generated as a Freedom of Information Act. We still have to comply with the law. So as a school district entity, my recommendation would be to approve this because you have to abide by the law. So with that said, we can all have our personal reasons of if we support this FOIA or not. But historically, the district gets a lot of FOIAs that we might personally not support. So I understand what Aaron is saying, and I said it myself, but in the end, we have to comply with the law.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So this will be a roll call or all of it?
We're not spending money. It's not
Yeah,
half
it doesn't have to be that.
a roll call.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, motion passes. And last, pulled item. The Board of Education is that the motion is that the Board of Education approve the actions contained in consent agenda item R3 as amended. The amendment is Bartlett Performing Arts Center for use by the city of Moline on April 27, 2021, from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m. for the oath of office for the newly elected council members of the city of Moline. Compensation for building fees and custodial services will be waived. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Number 6. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the Board of Education meeting 2021-2022 school year. Second. Is there any discussion?
Maria S. Figueroa. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith. Audrey Adamson. Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Sandy Renfrey.
Number 7 is a recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Moline-Coal Valley School District, Rock Island Regional Office of Education, and Popular Astronomy Club, Inc. to provide astronomy programming for those enrolled in 21st century CLC Lights On for Learning at John Deere Middle School. So moved. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Maria S. Figueroa. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith. Audrey Adamson. Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer. Sandy Renfrey.
The next item is a recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the new temporary academic recovery co-teacher job description to address learning loss associated as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So moved. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron Smith. Audrey Adamson. Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer. Maria S. Figueroa. Sandy Renfrey.
Number 9 is a recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the new temporary remote academy teacher job description in order to support the academic needs for qualifying remote students. So moved. Was that, Aaron moved it, Kate seconded, please. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Aaron Waldron Smith. Audrey Adamson. Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer. Maria S. Figueroa. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Sandy Renfrey.
Dr. Savage, superintendent.
Yes, I know how much the Board of Education has grown to really love my return to learn updates for the last 12 months. But I feel appropriate to abandon those comments and give some attention to the events that took place in our school district over this past weekend. This past weekend, Moline-Coal Valley students, staff, families, and the greater community were disgusted and disheartened to learn of the events that took place in the high school football locker room on Friday evening. I myself, upon learning of the incident, felt a range of emotions, including outrage, disappointment, and sadness for the students and families in our district and our community. The actions in the video are intolerable and unacceptable and will not go unsanctioned. I want to express gratitude publicly for the swift action taken immediately by the high school staff and the Moline Police Department. I am thankful and appreciative for the man-hours dedicated to investigating this case as quickly as possible, and extremely proud of the positive working relationship our district has with local law enforcement. While the police investigation is now complete, the school-based investigation is currently ongoing. I want to remind the community that these two processes are separate and different. I also want to remind everyone that the students involved in this behavior are minors, and the details of student discipline are private and protected by federal law. While outcry over the incident understandably calls for answers and justice, few details of the school-based investigation can actually be revealed. This must not be misunderstood or mistaken for lack of action. While it is understood that the context of the behavior plays a vital role, that the students involved were all of color, that they are friends, and admitted to joking around, but it also highlights a greater calling from all of us, adults and students alike, to ensure we as a district and community are doing all we can to coach and guide our youth in a way that encourages respectful and accepting treatment of all, in and out of the classroom, on and off the field, and inside and outside of our schools. As stewards of their educational development, it is our collective responsibility to rally and ensure all students feel safe and a true sense of belonging, not just in the coming days, but always. I want to express thanks to the high school leadership team and counseling department who gathered yesterday on Sunday for hours to ensure that plans were in place to meet the needs of students when they returned to school today. They created a comprehensive and thoughtful pathway for students to listen, talk, ask questions, express their emotions, and share their experiences. Counseling services were made available for groups of students and individuals needing extra support. This dedication of time for students to use their voice in conversation with peers and adults marks the first steps on a healing path forward. What happened on Friday is not who we are. What happens now is who we are. I stand with this district and this community. I stand unified, moving forward facing with our students and families of color and all Moline-Coal Valley School District stakeholders. This community belongs to everyone here. We can and will do better together. I look forward to sharing plans in the near future for a special community conversation where members of this community can gather and unite through common goals and a greater purpose of listening, learning, and understanding. Thank you.
Do you have anything else for the fourth quarter?
Nope.
Okay. Is there any discussion with the Board of Education? Yes, I have a couple, so some of it, other ones.
I just wanted to see if I could ask you a question. I understand that the high school did a lot. Was there much done at the middle school or elementary for anyone who, for any of those students who might have had older siblings involved, or not involved, but
That is a good question. Not necessarily that I was a part of, but I know all of the counselors in the district get to business and get down to work when these types of crises happen. That being said, throughout the week, I will make sure that the high school staff is able to share with the middle school and elementary school counselors in case they're looking for ideas and strategies on how to provide an outlet for kids. So that's a good
just
suggestion.
thinking of those that might, have older siblings that were exposed to all this situation, not necessarily involved, but.
Aaron?
I just have a quick question. I assume there will be some sort of feedback that you guys gather at the high school. We have that going on today this hour. So I would like to see some feedback. You guys, if anybody, I mean, of course, it would be private, but just in general, what was the concern,
Absolutely. We've got a debrief meeting scheduled with the high school counseling staff and leadership Friday at 1 o'clock. I know that this process is going to be ongoing for the rest of the week. And I wanted to also gather that information and get those perspectives from students so that we can use that information and knowledge to really help us plan how we move forward as a district.
as you know, I have a senior there, so probably kids there, so she's learning her perspective, but I think it's really curious to see. If possible.
Definitely.
Aaron, did you have something?
Yes. First, I want to say, Dr. Savage, I'm very happy with the idea of a community conversation because that's the bigger picture. And to me, there is nothing more important than making sure that we are coming together as communities to fix the bigger picture and work together. So I thank you for immediately getting on that. I'm very happy with that. I also want to say to Chief Galt and the Moline Police Department, I do not believe you could handle this better. Thank you for continuing to be incredible partners with the Moline School District. We are so blessed by the work our police department does. So I also want to say thank you to all the board members who took my phone calls when I was trying to work this out in my head, and Dr. Savage, and I want to thank all the community members who reached out too. But I also want to say that we heard you, and there is not anybody on this board who did not feel that the video is anything but unacceptable and is working towards a better solution. That's all I want to say on that. I saved it all up for this last meeting, Sandra. Go ahead. As a Moline School Board member, I am and continue to be deeply disturbed by the mailing that went out across the city. representing our board and our district. Not only were they an attempt at a character assassination, but they were a blow against our community and our values. I want to thank the two aldermen who publicly stood up for the district and recognized the utter necessity of the relationship between school and community. I personally believe that the new future has been ordered, that I am looking forward to working towards a better tomorrow, and I'm confident we will have a good relationship with the city moving on. Anything else?
Just touching on the two things, so from Instant Friday, I do appreciate reiterating the department response. I would say too, though, that I think in a lot of the language and stuff, I don't want us to shy away from using the words that they're, in terms of racial issues and stuff, and it doesn't seem to be, we dance around and saying uncomfortable and other things like that, but not, I think addressing that, I've heard that, other people just trying to cause that on my way home. I think just making sure that we are going into uncomfortable territory in those conversations, possibly with some people and not kind of making it like, no, I feel uncomfortable sometimes, and that, what are the examples of those things? So just putting that out there. Not our feedback, I have to say. And then I do think in terms of the mailings and the other things that I would like to say publicly, seeing something like that come out, that I think address the integrity of our school district and board and other things. At this point, see that full source of some of that, but I don't really move forward that we're not.
Anyone else? Okay, I need a motion to move into closed session to consider the appointment, employment, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, and to consider the possible sale, lease, or purchase of property by a public body, and to consider collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Second. All in favor? Aye. Move into closed session. Everybody turn your stuff in. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yeah. All right. Our next item of business is appointment of principal at Washington Elementary. The motion is that the Board of Education approve the appointment of further Bussard to a position of principal at Washington Elementary School effective for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Kate Schaefer. Aye. Maria Estragero. Aye. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron-Smith. Aye. Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Sangeeta Radcliffe.
Aye. And our last item of business is a contract extension for superintendent of schools. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the superintendent's employment contract effective for the 2021-2022 through 2024-2025 school years for Dr. Rachel Savage. Having found Superintendent Dr. Savage has successfully met the employment goals for the first and second years of her current superintendent employment contract. The school board approves the salary compensation of $188,500 for the 2021-2022 school year. Second. Roll call.
Maria Estragero. Aye. Andrew Ware.
Aye.
Aaron Waldron-Smith.
Aye.
Audrey Adamson.
Aye.
Justin Anderson.
Aye.
Kate Schaefer. Aye. Sangeeta Radcliffe.
Aye. Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Seconded by Maria. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you're adjourned. Am I ready for you guys?
Yeah.